Remember Jordan Peterson's hot take about the gender wage gap not existing from way back when? Of course you don't. Well, let me remind you.
But multivariate analysis of the pay gap indicate that it doesn't exist. You never do a univariate analysis. Like you say, well, women in aggregate are paid less than men. Okay, well, then we break it down by age, we break it down by occupation, we break it down by interest.
Well, what Peterson just said there was actually really stupid. Let's get into it. Most people who measure the wage gap do the following. They look at the average earnings of a man and compare it to the average earnings of a woman. The percentage difference is sometimes called the gender wage gap. JP argues that this isn't caused by discrimination, but by differences in male and female life choices, the big one being occupation. Women simply choose to have jobs with lower pay. And though that may be true, this is not how economics works. Okay, let me back up. JP is imagining us measuring the wage gap by controlling for occupation. So when you do some statistical magic, you ask, how much do different occupations affect wages? Alongside, how much does gender affect wages? And you isolate the real effect of gender. In reality, that doesn't work because the wage gap itself affects the choice of occupation. Imagine if there's two sectors, one with a wage gap of 50%, another with 0%. Women choose the latter sector because it has a smaller wage gap, so there's very few women in the former, and when you run a regression, the first profession is weighted less, making the wage gap appear smaller than it really is. So that's point one for why JP doesn't understand economics. He seems to have forgotten the first principle. People respond to incentives. Now on to a really annoying error. Have you seen this tweet? JP here was attacking climate scientists, saying that they should prove their credentials by predicting the stock market first. That makes sense, right? Before you start predicting something as large and complex as the climate, you should try to predict something small and doable like the stock market. No. The issue is that the climate doesn't care about the predictions you make, but the stock market does. When predicting the climate, you can think about all the factors that will affect it. CO2 emissions, natural change of temperature, whatever. You then build a model that makes forecasts. But when you predict stocks, you need to find information that nobody else has incorporated. For example, if you plan to say, oh, I think Apple will go up because of the Vision Pro, they're forgetting that Apple's stock reflects that information. Anyone selling you the stock also knows about the Vision Pro. They will only sell it to you at a price where they believe that they're receiving fair value despite that info. Because of this, stock prices are nearly impossible to predict and are often best modeled as a random walk. You know, for someone who claims to be into free market econ, you'd think that Peterson would at least have heard about the efficient market hypothesis? Oh well. On to reason number 3. What I'm about to explain is sometimes called the lump of labor fallacy. Peterson essentially argued that women's entry into the workforce caused wages to decline since 1970. Or as he says,
Well, you know that wages have been flat, except in the upper 1% since 1973. Why? Well, it's easy. What happens when you double the labor force? What happens? You have the value of labor.
okay, first of all, wages have not stagnated since 1970. Real compensation is up 67% since 1970. But there's a more important mistake here. JB argues that more workers means less wages. That makes sense, right? If you increase the supply of labor, its value goes down. Again, no. Increasing the workforce increases the supply of labor, but it also increases the demand for labor, because the new workers also want to buy stuff. To simplify this problem, imagine Robinson Crusoe on an island. He sits around grabbing coconuts and bananas all day and consumes them. Well, what if Friday comes onto the island and starts working with him? Does Crusoe's income halve because the labor force doubled? No. Friday also starts grabbing coconuts and bananas. They'll have more stuff now in total. In fact, if Crusoe and Friday can specialize in bananas and coconuts each, Crusoe will probably end up better off than he was prior. To translate back into the original claim, women who join the workforce make stuff. Since they make stuff, we as a society have more stuff, since wages and money is just a way of getting stuff, we'll become better off. Again, a bit weird that free market Peterson seems to hate markets so much, but whatever. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel, or better yet, to our Patreon. Link down in the description below.